and welcome back to the Keeping Up with the Joneses podcast. I'm your host, Jerred, along with my co host, Doug.
I'm Douglas Graves. Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, and we apologize for not having an episode last week. We had some technical difficulties with our recording, some files got lost in there. So we just kind of gave up on that episode, but we're back this week and we got some good news to talk about with the Eberflus firing, which I'm pretty happy about. I think you probably are too, that we no longer
Yep.
have to deal with this atrocity of a defense that we have been subjected to for the last 17 games. Finally, that era is over, and it seems like the Cowboys are going on the attack looking for a new defensive coordinator. Doesn't seem like they're going to play around and kind of draw this out like they used to do. Maybe learn their lesson a little bit on that with guys like McCarthy, and you kind of end up just picking up whatever's left if you wait too long. So
Right.
it seems like maybe they've learned their lesson a little bit on that front. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully. I always hope that they don't continue to do the things that seem to annoy us year after year, and that would be one of those things. So hopefully this year they figured it out and they just get the group that we need in there early and everything's
For
good
sure.
going forward.
Yeah, it seems like they're moving a little differently than they used to in terms of, number one, firing Eberflus this early. I know they came out in the media and said it was probably going to be I think a 10 to 12 day process. And a lot of fans kind of freaked out because they're like, you got to be kidding me. You saw the guy on the field for 17 games. You should know that he's not the answer.
Hmm.
And of course, heard a couple different theories. Some people seem to think that, maybe Jerry Jones meant that it was going to be a 10 to 12 day process for the entire thing from firing
Right.
Eberflus to hiring the new guy. But also heard a theory from Brian Broaddus that I heard was that maybe Jerry Jones saw the backlash from the fans when he said it was going to be a 10 to 12 day process, that he decided he had to move a little faster than they anticipated having to. And that seems very, very Jones-esque to me, that for that to be the true case here. But either way, they didn't take long to move on Eberflus, and it seems like they're going to get their coaching search on. Uh, Before we get really too deep into the coaches and the candidates that might replace Eberflus, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the season in review, and I want to grade each coach based on their performance last year. We'll go kind of one by one, and we'll start with Schottenheimer. For me, I'm going to give Schottenheimer a B, a solid B. I think when you lead the number one offense in football and pretty much top five in almost every important category, I think they were maybe sixth in rushing this year, but they
Hmm.
were third last year. I think you got to give the guy some credit, even if maybe he had a hand to play in the defense being this bad, not directly, but by maybe not putting his foot down. So there's times where I feel like Schottenheimer maybe he's just a first year head coach and he's never been a head coach before, so he doesn't feel like he has the prestige maybe that Eberflus had being a former head coach and being highly respected around the league for whatever reason. Maybe Schottenheimer didn't feel like he really had the authority to kind of put his foot down with Eberflus throughout the year. So, and it
Right.
wasn't his hire anyways. By all accounts, technically Schottenheimer was hired before Eberflus on paper, but I think everyone kind of knows Eberflus was hired before Schottenheimer. And
Hmm.
so Schotty had no loyalty to the man, but I think he just wanted to be respectful to somebody who he probably looked up to. Maybe he doesn't look up to him anymore, but maybe, earlier in his career, he thought of Eberflus as one of the better coaches in the league and well respected. So for that regard, I'll give Schottenheimer a B. I think it could have been better, but definitely think when you lead the offense to the number one rank and top five in almost every important category, you got to give a little bit of credit to the guy.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I would probably rank him somewhere around a B, maybe a high C plus at the best or at the worst. I mean, that would be pretty on par with where I'd put it as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think actually in the media, somebody asked Shoddy to rate himself, and I think he said he got a C minus.
Yeah.
And so he was honest. And I mean, maybe I'm giving him more credit than I should, but I feel like he was a good culture setter. He definitely has the locker room seemingly in line to a large part. They're getting rid of guys that aren't buying into the philosophy here. So,
Hmm.
if you grade it based on multiple fronts, leadership, I think he's A plus on leadership. I think if you look at offense, he's a solid A minus to A in my opinion. I think he's got some things he can fix and get better at. So A minus to me. But when it comes to maybe respect and control in the locker room, or maybe not so much in the locker room, but in the coaching staff, maybe he had to earn that a little bit this year with his first year in the NFL as a head coach. That's just kind of my thoughts on him. I think Shoddy had a great year though overall, and I'm definitely not looking at him as the guy we need to be replacing. So I feel like
Yeah,
he
no.
was more of the solution than the problem.
I feel so much better about him as our head coach than I have for years, to be honest, with
Right.
McCarthy and, dating all the way back to the Jason Garrett days, so I don't know.
I
There's
remember I
something
was
about
pissed.
Schottenheimer that I just feel better about.
Yeah, and I remember when the news was coming out, when people were starting to say that Shoddy might be a real candidate, I was so pissed. I think I even might have said that if they hire Schottenheimer and don't look at these other coaches, I may not watch this season. That was
Mhm.
obviously a lie because I'm a Cowboys fan and we're stuck.
Yeah.
But I was pissed. I didn't want Schottenheimer. I didn't think, and not that I didn't think he couldn't be a good coach, just that you had Ben Johnson out there and you had some of
Mhm.
these other great candidates out there, Liam Cohen. So, it's not that I didn't like Schottenheimer at all. It's just that I thought you should have at least exhausted all of your resources and time spent on trying to make sure you got the right guy. And it
Yeah.
seems like they rushed it a little bit.
I didn't think that he would come in and get the locker room the way that he has. It seems like all the players, uh, every team and even we on here talk about being bought in, and it seems like they all are, but they all seem to genuinely like him. He's a player's coach while also being, the no nonsense, not, letting them get away with stuff and holding them accountable type of coach. He finds the perfect medium between both of those things. So I
Yeah,
think it's
it's
promising
one of those
with
good
him at the
qualities.
helm, no matter who we end up with as far as our I think we're on the right track just because he's the head coach going into
For
next year.
sure, for sure, and, we were kinda traumatized by the Jason Garrett era of the right
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
guys. Shoddy does have some of the same tendencies, he has a lot of the coach speak, a lot of the same, basically, next man up philosophies and all that, so a little bit too coach speaky, but at the same time, he has the locker room's respect, and,
Yeah,
I
no,
think it really helped him that he was already in the locker room for a couple years before, so they didn't just hire him outside the organization with no credibility or, you know, so he was already in the building and the guys knew how genuine he was before he became head coach, and I really think that helped him.
yeah. Speaking of genuine, because like with Jason Garrett, yeah, like there is a lot of coach speak with both coaches. But the thing I noticed that's different about Schottenheimer versus Garrett is it almost seemed like Garrett was halfway bullshitting you. He was so he was so proper in coach speak and like he didn't
Robotic,
really yes, it almost
very
seemed like he
robotic.
was bullshitting you half the time. Where with Schottenheimer, it seems like, he's straight to the point,
Genuine guy.
as much as he can be, whenever he's asked questions in
Mhm.
the media and stuff. So I like that
Yep,
about him.
yep. I got a lot of respect for Shoddy. I think, a lot to improve on going into next year, and I think he's the kind of person that's gonna put in the work and do the research and the self scouting to be a better coach next year. So
Hmm.
I think we got the coach to get it done. Finally, we have the coach that I think can actually get this thing done.
Yeah.
Moving on to the special teams coordinator, and that would be Mr. Nick Sorensen. And it seems like, from what I heard today, that Jerry Jones, well, I don't know if Jerry Jones said anything directly, but the reports coming out of the media is that they're going to keep Nick Sorensen for another year. And they said basically that the special teams was not up to par and they were frustrated, but they were not going to fire him. So looks like we got another year of Nick Sorensen coming up.
Which I'm not really like upset with. I like that, to be honest.
Yeah, you need some continuity somewhere.
Well, I feel
And
like his up to par, like because our special teams is, I mean, we had an all pro returner, we have some older guys that were supposed to be really good return guys. And like, I think it was CJ Goodwin was one of them that we've had for a few years now. That, I mean, whenever you set the bar that high, a year like this where we did make some special teams plays this year,
yeah, I
some
think they had that big
returns. Just,
punt return or kick return in the
yeah.
last game.
Yeah, like Turpin wasn't breaking them every game, but he did have some where he would, break it across the 50, stuff like that. So the special teams game wasn't terrible. It's just it wasn't up to par on what we've set for ourselves in years past. That's
Right.
why I'm kind of okay with, and I'd give him probably somewhere around a C plus, maybe just right at a C as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go that high. I just saw too many. That Lions game really pissed me off. That's where I'll start with it. I mean, it seemed like, especially in the second half, they started every one of their drives around the 40 to 50 yard line. And that just cannot happen. That cannot
Yeah.
happen, especially when you're taking other roster spots away from more serious positions for a special teams ace who is getting blown out of the sideline and missing tackles like CJ Goodwin
Yeah.
has been this year. So,
Because that
it's a
one
down
player
year.
is
Yeah, go ahead.
affecting that one player that you're talking about, in situations like that, it's affecting the game on a big level.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
so
I
if you're
can
gonna take
understand.
that roster spot, you need to be up to par. You have to be a true ace, and CJ Goodwin has had many good years for the Cowboys. This year was one of his worst, and I'm not sure if that goes on the special teams coach or if it just goes on him maybe just getting older and falling apart a little bit, but either way, next year, I would like to see them not use that roster spot on CJ Goodwin. It obviously didn't help them last year, so, why not use that spot for another quality player? Like, you wouldn't have had to cut Perrion Winfrey this year. You coulda kept him on the
Mhm.
roster and not had to risk losing him in the post cut. So, stuff like that. But Nick Sorensen, I think I'm gonna give him a D plus,
Mm,
barely a C minus to me. It really pissed me off that Lions game. So for him, I could care less
yeah.
if he comes back, but I could see it on the front of continuity. So
Yeah.
next on the list is Mr. Clayton Adams. And so this one's interesting to me because Clayton Adams, he technically has the offensive coordinator title, but he's really the run game coordinator. And so I had to kind of look into it because there's a couple teams that do that, but usually the offensive coordinator calls the plays. Clayton Adams doesn't call the plays at all. Shoddy calls the plays. Clayton Adams is there mostly to help game plan and coordinate the run game pretty much.
Mhm.
So on that front, I think you got to give Clayton Adams at least a B plus to A minus at the worst to me. I think he had a
Right.
great year. You turned the 31st ranked offense into the sixth ranked rushing offense,
Mhm.
and you did it with
Resurgence here in Williams.
for sure. And you did it with next to nobody at running back. You didn't have any superstar back there, but Javonte Williams kind of showed up and played well. So yeah, I think in my opinion, Clayton Adams gets it at worst a B plus, but I think I'm going to stick with an A minus for him.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Cool. So and next is Aaron Whitecotton, defensive line coach.
This one's hard.
He is a little hard
I
because
don't wanna I can't put as much blame on him as Eberflus, but at the same time, he's gotta take a hit here for the way this defense has played as well.
yeah, I mean at best, I think you have to give him like a B minus to a C plus.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'm thinking more of the straight C. I can't put too much of it on him, which is why I'm not gonna give him a D plus, take him down into, like, halfway he might need to be gone territory, but, I would say just a straight C because, I mean, the defense has just
well,
been bad. It's been a historically bad defense, and the defensive line, even though it's had its bright spots, hasn't shown up enough for me to really think that it's a strength, really.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think for me, I'd say that he needed a better team around him to really focus on that D line, and he didn't have the talent that he had towards the end of the year. But at the same time, you're held accountable at the same standard, and yeah, I could see a solid C being about as high as you could go. I mean, I think I'd stick with a C plus. I think that's what I'll give him. But yeah, he didn't have a good year, and I don't feel like it's all on him. And I think in a better situation, he probably shines.
Mhm.
But he was here in Dallas, and that was the luck of the draw, so
I
sucks
will
for
give
him,
him
but
one thing though, whenever he was thrust into that, like, small little window where he was doing the play calling for the defense, they didn't get any worse, and for it to be a historically bad defense and to be thrust into that position, and the defense just either played a little bit better or just played about the same, like there was no hitch or anything, didn't make it any worse, I'll give him that at least.
yeah. Yep, give him a little credit. Alright, next is Connor Riley, the offensive line coach, and, kind of a similar situation in that probably more good than bad. Not really similar at all, actually. I'd say Aaron Whitecotton had kind of a crappy year, but Connor Riley probably had more good than bad out of his offensive line. I think it was tough with some of the injuries, putting a rookie in there, and he
Mhm.
got injured
Moving
early. Your
around.
left tackle got injured, and a lot of moving around. And it's not Madden in real life, so you don't just you don't just swing your left tackle to right guard. You can't do that like you can in Madden. So to be able to shuffle the offensive line around and still have overall solid offensive line play, I think that was impressive. Definitely had better run game or run game blocking than we did pass blocking, but I think that's kind of part of what the guys you drafted. You
Yeah,
drafted
and
guys that are better at run block.
I think that's young guys, young O linemen nowadays too. You
Mhm.
know, in college they just learned how to maul people, and passing isn't as prominent for every program in college. So
That is true. And a side note here, kind of done ranking the coaches, but a side note here, they did announce that Tyler Smith will be staying at left guard going into next year. And
yeah,
I kind of fought a little bit for maybe him staying at left tackle. I think it kind of it smooths out the draft process for you to just have him be your left tackle. But at the
Uh,
same time, he's an all-pro left guard, and if you take a top 5 left guard and make him a top 15 left tackle, I don't know if you really are winning at all. So I kind of I'm happy for him. He wanted to play left guard, and so I think he's where he
I
wants
mean,
to
I
be,
would
where he's
too.
best at.
If I already made an All Pro there in my first 3 or 4 years in the league, I would probably want to stay at that position too.
Yeah. So kind of happy for Tyler Smith, man. He's not going to be forced to make himself look goofy out there just so the Joneses will be happy. You would have got a better paycheck if you had moved to left tackle, and
Right.
probably about $4 or $5 million a year more. But that's okay. He's going to be an All-Pro left guard, and in a couple years he'll be a steal in terms of salary. So
Yeah. If we can
okay,
find a center, then having him there with Booker, those three right there in the core of the line
man, they could
is
maul
more
some people.
that's more valuable to me than moving him to left tackle anyways.
I agree with that. Okay, we're going to move on. I want to talk about who the Cowboys might hire to replace Matt Eberflus.
Okay.
And we tried to talk about this last week on the podcast. Of course, that audio is missing somewhere in the ether.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about some of these guys again. And the first one I want to talk about, and my most hopeful candidate, is Brian Flores, the Vikings defensive coordinator.
I
And
still have my I still have my reserves on that one, but keep going.
yeah, it's a tricky situation because I think if you're trying to actually rebuild your defense and you want it to be good for more than just a couple years, I think that's the kind of
Yeah.
scheme you need to adopt. The problem is Brian Flores won't be there more than a year,
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
two.
think he'll be there long enough to see it through because then you're
Mhm.
looking at hiring somebody else in 2 years once you've got this defense put in place with the people actually that you need.
Yeah, and that's where honestly this comes down to the Joneses need to have an organizational philosophy that they're going to stick to. So the 49ers run one style of defense. They lose their coordinator every other year, but they run the same defense. That's because the 49ers head coach has a philosophy about what style of team he wants to be. And then when they interview to look for defensive coordinators, they're finding guys that fit that mold. And the Cowboys don't do that. They're willing to go from a 3-4, a different kind of scheme, a little bit more man press, and then a few years later they're willing to switch to a 4-3, more defensive tackle base kind of thing. They just change it up too much. They don't have an
Yeah.
organizational philosophy. And so that's a core problem that goes way beyond the coaching hiring that they're about to do, but it's still very relevant to me that it's really just it's the Joneses. They need to make up their mind of what kind of team they want to be and then hire guys that fit that mold.
Yeah,
But
they really need because I'm hoping to have like I would in a realistic place, like I would have Shoddy here for the next 3 or 4 years at least. For Dak's window. For the rest of Dak's
Mhm.
window, I would like for him to have one coach. So I mean, you'd really like to have your coordinators that long too, but I mean that's kind of a lot to ask, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard, but that's the whole idea, right? Like, number 1, you want your coach, your head coach to be an offensive-minded guy, at least in my world. Of course, everybody has their own opinions, but to me, I think your head coach it should be a young guy who is adaptable, who is always looking at NFL trends, who's staying on top of what's working in the NFL, not just trying to stick to something his grandpa taught him.
Mhm.
And that kind of guy doesn't go anywhere, right? Because he's the head coach. So you don't have to worry about your bright up and coming offensive coordinator disappearing because he's your head coach. Now
Right.
you got to worry about the defense. And in today's NFL, with the way the rules are set up, you'd rather have an elite offense than elite defense.
Which we have.
So yeah, we do, and it didn't work out too well this year. But we just need
Yeah,
a
we have a
mediocre defense to pair
like
with it.
I've said multiple times now, we had a historically bad defense. Like,
Right.
doesn't matter how good your offense is whenever your team's giving up 35, 40 points a game.
It was the fourth worst defense since they've started recording DVOA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
It's unbelievably bad. Yeah, and I think I saw a really interesting number. The Cowboys lead the NFL over the last 2 years in points allowed combined. I think in the last 2 years combined, see if I can find it real quick. Let's see.
yeah, I really didn't think going into this year that the defense could be this bad. Every
It's
year, it
pretty
seems like with this
atrocious.
team, it's back and forth. Like, you never really know what you're going to get.
It
And
is
it's
very
always been the
atrocious.
defense all the way back dating to Tony Romo. It's been the defense has always held us back. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
I never could have thought that it would be
It's
this bad.
unbelievable. And, we'll see what this team does, like how they change with the new culture and everything that Shoddy's wanting to put in here. But the Cowboys have allowed just over 900 points combined over the last 2 years. I think over 950 points is the number I
Right.
saw, which is leading the NFL by over 30 points. So their defense over the last 2 years, including Invader Zim and Mike Zimmer, it's still been bad.
Mhm.
and they have been on a downward trend since really that second or third year of Dan Quinn being here. So, oh, this is another very interesting stat to me. Since 2020, here are the 5 teams with the most penalties committed and accepted.
Oh
Can you
yeah,
guess who number 1 is?
Dallas.
Dallas Cowboys with 678. Number 2 is the Tennessee Titans at 650. So we're we're leading the next closest team by 28.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of getting off topic there with that, but I want to really what it ties into is that the next coach and the philosophy of this team and what they're trying to build here needs to mold together no matter who the coach is. So
Right.
what I'm trying to say is I want the Cowboys to have an idea of what kind of team they want to be, what kind of defense that Brian Schottenheimer wants. And every time a new head coach or a new defensive coordinator leaves us, we just find another guy that has the same mindset and philosophy and scheme. And then you
Right.
keep bringing that in, but it will see because Brian Flores, although I think he's one of the best coaches out there, he's a very very heavy zone blitz kind of guy. He loves sim pressures, and we just don't have the dogs for that. We just don't have
Mm-mm.
the personnel for that kind of scheme. So it would be a lot for him to turn this defense around in 1 year. So next on the list is Jim Schwartz, which I personally believe is the most likely of the non-Cowboys familiar guys. He runs more of a 4-3. He likes to blitz a lot, and he's a very aggressive style of defense. So
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys are more a little bit more suited to a 4-3 style, which in today's NFL 4-3 and 3-4 don't really make a whole lot of difference. But the Cowboys have more personnel that fits his style of defense than I think Brian Flores does. So I think he would be a very interesting hire.
Yeah, I agree. That just seems to be with the guys that we have, especially the young guys on the defensive line. That's more equipped with what we have, especially
Mhm.
if we do end up only having two of those three big defensive tackles next year,
Mhm.
depending on what they do with Kenny Clark and his contract and all that.
For sure. Next on the list is Jim Leonard. This is an interesting one, but I think he's similar to Brian Flores in that he wouldn't be here very long. I think if he could turn the Cowboys defense into a contender or a better defense than they are, just slightly even, he's probably going to be gone within a year or two.
Hmm.
But he runs a similar style of defense to Brian Flores too, a little bit more hybrid, a lot of sim pressures. They're very multiple. They like to mix things up, but
Hmm.
he's got a very creative style of defense over there. So, but I think he would be a head coaching candidate pretty quick too. So that's kind of another reason to maybe avoid him.
Right.
Next is Jonathan Gannon, Cardinals ex head coach. He was the Eagles defensive coordinator during that last the Super Bowl before this last one they just beat the Chiefs in.
Hmm.
He was a pretty darn good defensive coordinator. He had a really good defense with the Eagles, and honestly, the Cardinals didn't have an awful defense. They didn't have a lot of talent either. But he is, he is another candidate, and I think he's a little bit more of a scheme fit as well. He fits more of a 4-3 base style defense, which the Cowboys have the personnel to run, just not very good apparently. But he is very adaptable, and so that's one thing I can say about Jonathan Gannon. I've kind of looked into some of his history, and he's willing to change his scheme a lot based on what he has available to him. And if there's ever a team that you need a coordinator that's willing to do that, it would probably be that guy. So that's a pretty interesting candidate. We'll see what happens there. And then the
He's
next one I
probably
have,
Tim or Schwartz for me. I think so. To be honest.
Jonathan
Those are
Gannon or
the two.
Schwartz.
Yeah, out of the ones that we've talked about, I think those are the two
Okay.
that is most likely for me.
Couple dark horses here. Dirty. I don't know how to say his last name. You might remember him. He was in the Cowboys defensive coaching staff with Dan Quinn before they
Hmm.
all got fired. And he is in Seattle now, I believe, and having a pretty darn good year. I don't think he's the defensive coordinator. I think he's the defensive backs coach, if I'm correct on that. I think I am.
Right.
But that style of defense Seattle's running, I think, could also really work here in Dallas. A lot of four-man pressures. They like to get pressure with a four-man front, but they also blitz a lot. They're willing to attack you. They're very hybrid. They're willing to adapt their scheme based on what you're running. So Aiden Dirty, a familiar guy. So you know the Joneses like familiarity, and they also like taking chances on guys because it makes them seem like geniuses when it works out. So that could be another one that the Cowboys look into. And then the last one I got on the list here is Raheem Morris, the Falcons coach that just got fired. One thing I like about Raheem Morris, I also think he's a little bit more like Brian Flores, a little bit more in that probably don't have the dogs to run his scheme, but a lot of sim pressures, exotic fronts. He likes to run hybrid. He'll run a 3-4 and then he'll come back at you with a 4-3 misaligned front. He just likes to mix things up a lot. He makes it really difficult for an offense to stay on top of what he's doing. And so that's another one that I think would be a great candidate, but also probably not going to be on the top of the list for the Cowboys. So, and now that we kind of gone through them all, I do agree. I think Jim Schwartz is probably the best fit for what the Cowboys want and what they have. And with the least amount of transition, I think Jim Schwartz could probably be the best fit. I would be really happy with Jim Schwartz. I would be really happy with Brian Flores, of course.
Mhm.
I just don't think it's going to happen there, but I think he would be the best person for the job. And I would be really happy with Jonathan Gannon. So those are pretty interesting options. We'll see what the Cowboys decide to do. The biggest thing is they need to have a thorough search and they need to interview everybody they can. They don't need to be interviewing the one guy they have on their list, being narrow minded and just focusing in on one guy. Just interview them all and let's see who the best candidate is.
Mhm.
That's my only wish. All right. So, enough of that. We're going to talk about the playoffs a little bit. We'll start with the AFC, and the Chargers will be playing at the Patriots. So, I want to get some predictions here. I'll let you kind of give me your predictions first.
I'd say that one's gonna be a decent game. I can't really give you a I'm not gonna give you a point prediction, but I think that's gonna be a pretty decent game, but the Patriots are just too good for the inconsistency of the Chargers, so,
Yeah, I think
uh
I agree with that. Chargers have the ability to surprise you, but they also have the ability to go charging, and that's what they love to do.
well, I
And
mean,
they're
is
also without
everybody
their
healthy?
best.
If everybody's not healthy to protect Justin Herbert, then there's no way.
Well, their two tackles are done for the year, so he's
Yeah,
going to be
if
running
that's what I'm
against.
saying, like,
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's gonna be more of the same that we've seen all year long.
they do have a darn
I
good
mean,
defense. I'll be
they do, and
surprised.
it's a shame that they haven't been able to protect him all year long
Mhm,
because
and they
the
did their best. I mean, they drafted 2 great players for that job. They just
yeah,
can't you can't predict injuries,
neither one
so.
of them were on the field, so.
Mhm. The next one is the Bills are gonna be playing at the Jaguars.
Mhm.
And I just do not trust the Jags. I don't care how what their record is. I just don't trust them. I don't trust Sunshine. I don't trust any of them. I need to see them do something in the playoffs before I can bet on them.
Yeah.
Personally, I think the Bills are favored by 1.5 points in this game. I think I'm going with the Bills here. I think the Bills. I don't think they've won a road playoff game in 33 years, is what I saw earlier today. So I think they're going to break the curse this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bills here as well.
Good deal. Texans will be playing at the Steelers because the NFL likes to let division winners get home games, even if
This is the
they
one that
are.
this is one I'm definitely watching right here.
It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a snooze fest because those two defenses are
I
really
hope
good.
not. I hope Aaron Rodgers
Aaron Rodgers is no longer going to sling anything except for
uh,
sling himself right into a freaking cast. Okay, so he's not that guy anymore. Calm down.
alright.
But it would be amazing if what is he 44?
Yeah,
It'd be a pretty amazing to
something
see a
like that.
44-year-old quarterback lead the Steelers to the back to the Super Bowl. That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with man, that's a tough one to me. I wanna trust the Texans defense more than I trust
Oh, I
Aaron
do,
Rodgers.
yeah. If
So,
yeah, I'm taking the Texans.
it's
Don't get me
tough that
wrong.
it's in Pittsburgh, though, that's the only thing. So, I don't know. I think the Steelers with that crowd and the steel curtain and everything, it's gonna be tough for the Texans, and they're already not a very good offense. But
Right.
trying to hear themselves and make adjustments, it's gonna be tough. I think I'm gonna go with the Texans just out of, sheer talent difference.
Mhm.
I think the Texans defense is just unbelievable. So, and in the NFC, we got the Packers and the Bears first, and the Packers will be playing at Chicago. Um, I really hope for the Cowboys' sake the Bears win because we'll get a little better draft pick. I think we could end up with the 12th and the 18th draft pick, which would be
Mhm.
pretty crazy. But I think we need the Panthers to win and the Packers to lose for that to happen. So, um, I think on this one, I'm gonna trust that Chicago is gonna do what they're supposed to do against a team that's real beat up. Doesn't have Micah Parsons, which is the whole reason they traded for him was this time of the year. I think I'm gonna trust that the Bears are gonna do their job in that game. I think they're gonna take care of business at home.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they've just been consistent for the last part of the season, and I feel like the Bears is where I'm gonna go with this one too.
Yeah. All right, a good one here. This is going to be a fun game to watch. And I hate both of these two organizations. So, really, no matter what happens, I win and I lose here. But 49ers are going to be playing at Philadelphia.
Mm.
And with it being a home game for Philly, I wonder if they're favored even with the worst record and just being, past Super Bowl defended champs. So I could see the Eagles being favored in this game. I kind of feel like the 49ers are rolling like right now, though.
Mhm.
Think I'm gonna go 49ers on that game.
Honestly, I'm gonna go Eagles on this one. I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it's gonna be another one of those boring Eagles games that we've seen all year this year, where they've won
Mhm.
some games, where it's real close, or they get ahead and just hold people for the whole game. So
Yeah, and
I
their
feel like that's
defense is
what we're gonna
dominant.
see. I feel like
Okay.
it's gonna be Eagles by 7 points.
Okay. We shall see. And last game to look at, the Rams will be at the Panthers again because the NFL decided that division winners are more important than having a better record. So the Rams will be going to the Panthers. That will be a tougher game than I think people are expecting, but I for sure see the Rams coming out of this game with a win.
Yeah, I think so as well. The Rams that's my powerhouse team for me. That's how I see it going into the playoffs. The team that's most likely to have a easy path through is the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that makes perfect sense, especially with Matthew Stafford having an MVP level year with 40 plus touchdowns.
Hmm.
It's hard to bet against a guy that's having that much success with Devontae Adams and
Yeah,
Puka
hopefully
Nakua,
everybody's getting healthy going into the off.
for sure. Okay, last thing we're gonna look at today is we're gonna look at another mock draft. So we did one of these a few weeks ago. We're gonna check out one from PFF. I'm not sure who exactly is responsible for it, but it is PFF branded. So number one, they got the Raiders taking Fernando Mendoza, which I think would be a great pick for them.
Yeah, I don't know how much I believe in him, but it's the most sure pick that I could guess that anybody's going to make is that pick. So
Yeah, you
not
got
as
to
far
take a
as the
chance on a
player, but I
quarterback.
just feel like they need quarterback, and that's, I mean,
Hmm.
the number one guy this year. So
Yeah, and I mean, if your other option is Dante Moore, I feel like Fernando Mendoza is going to be a better prospect. So
yeah,
speaking of Dante Moore, the Jets are projected to take him, the number two overall pick. So Dante Moore, the quarterback out of Oregon, they're predicting to go
they
number two.
they need to do something because I mean, I think you sent that thing to our group chat the other night that showed that the number one receiver in New York was still Garrett Williams
Garrett
somehow,
Wilson, yeah, with
or
like
Garrett Wilson. Yeah,
420
yeah,
yards.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's truly a shame what's going on at
Hasn't caught a
quarterback.
pass in like 6 weeks or since week 6 or something like that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I
Unbelievable.
don't.
That blew
That
my mind.
translates to bad quarterback play. It has to. There's
Oh, for
no other
sure,
way.
for sure. Well, I think that's a good pick for them. They gotta try again at quarterback. They're just gonna have to keep shooting off shots and seeing if they could eventually hit a decent quarterback. And maybe one day they'll realize that the problem is not the quarterbacks, and it's the fact that the entire organization and team is completely and totally bad. So
Hmm.
maybe one day the Jets will catch on to that. Number three, the Arizona Cardinals. I really hope this doesn't happen this early. I would be really happy for the player, but really upset for the Cowboys because I want David Bailey, and they're projecting the Arizona Cardinals to take David Bailey with the third overall pick. I do feel like that's very rich for David Bailey, even though he's getting
Hmm.
hyped up right now. So we'll see about that one. That is really high for David Bailey, but I could see it happening. Teams love these faster pass rushers, so we could see
Right.
it. Number four, the Titans are projected to take Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. I think he is probably the third best wide receiver in this class, and I would not be happy if I were a Titans fan if they took Jordan Tyson over Makai Lemon.
Yeah. Or even Carnell Tate, maybe.
Mhm.
Maybe.
I got both of those guys over Jordan Tyson, but I think Makai Lemon might be my favorite receiver in this class, but it's really
Right.
close between him and Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate just catches everything. It doesn't matter. If he can get his hands on the ball, he's gonna catch it. So, speaking of Makai Lemon, he is the next guy on the board, which would be another really, really interesting pick for the Giants. They're projecting him to take Makai Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. That would be
Mm.
a very deadly matchup to have Makai Lemon on one side and what's his name? I'm losing it right now.
Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors, yes. If you have Malik Neighbors and Makai Lemon on the field at the same time, that is a deadly combo. So I don't know if they feel like they need to address their defense more than anything, but you want to give your quarterback a chance to succeed in the NFL. You get your star running back again next year, and you go get him another star wide receiver. That's a good way to set him up for some success in this league. So I think that would be a good pick for the Giants. Number six, the Browns are projected to take Spencer Fanu, which is the tackle from Utah. Think that would be a solid pick. He is probably the
Hmm.
best tackle in this class, but also probably needs to be in a very specific type of scheme that I just don't think the Cowboys really run. So Spencer Fanu, they project him to go at six. Number seven, this would be another gut punch to me as a guy who's looking for pass rushers in this class. They're projecting Ruben Bain Jr. to go to Washington at number 7 overall. And that would be a excellent pick for Washington, in my opinion. I think Ruben Bain, he's at least the second best pass rusher in my book in this draft class. And it's a toss up between pure pass rushers between him and David Bailey, but you still got Arvell Reese, who has shown a lot of potential as a pass rusher. He could be up there in some people's lists, but Ruben Bain would be a great pickup for Washington. So far, this draft is looking very, very bad for the Cowboys. Number
Hmm.
8 is the Saints, and they're taking Carnell Tate. And I don't know. I don't know if they really know what all they need. Yeah, I guess they do need another wide
Everything.
receiver, especially since the other guy can't stop getting concussions. So maybe add another receiver and giving Shuck some more talent around him isn't a bad idea after all.
Hmm.
At number 9, they got Kansas City taking Jeremiah Love, and
I like
man,
this pick.
man, that's a good pick.
Hmm.
I hate taking running backs in the first round, especially that early in the first round. You know, pick 23 and above. Taking a running back's not the end of the world because you're already kind of out of the superior talent projections anyways. So, but taking a running back in the top 10 is really, really brutal. So you need to make sure that is the last piece of the puzzle for you to have success if you're going to take a running back that early. I'm not sure that's the answer for the Chiefs offense, but I definitely don't think it would be anything less than a part of the solution. So
He's great talents.
if those other 3 wide receivers are gone before they pick, Jeremiah Love would be the best help to that offense that's on the board.
Hmm.
So good pick there. Number 10, they got the Bengals taking Caleb Downs.
Mm.
Man, man, if Caleb Downs gets to 10,
Yeah, I know. Maybe you
which
go up those two spots.
which in this mock draft, which is probably not going to happen in real life, we're still months away from the draft, guys. But in this mock draft, Arvell Reese is still available here. So if Caleb Downs is available at 10 and Arvell Reese is available at 10, I'm not moving anywhere. So, but then you have to be really careful because the next pick on the board, could be Arvell Reese, right? So if they take Caleb Downs, I think that's when I'm trading up and going to get Arvell Reese because you're that close. But if they don't take Caleb Downs and he moves on to the next spot, you just leave it alone because you're going to probably get either Arvell Reese or Caleb Downs. So next on the board, they got the Dolphins taking the cornerback out of Clemson, Avion Terrell. And then at number 12, the Cowboys are being mocked to take Arvell Reese. So I don't think that's realistic. I don't think Arvell Reese or Caleb Downs are getting outside the top 10. It's very possible, but there's a lot of guys on the board at pick 12 that I would love to have on this defense and I think would be instant starters and upgrades. So
Mhm.
in this mock draft, if you're telling me Arvell Reese, Mansour Delane, Sonny Styles, Jermod McCoy, there's other names even on here still. If you're telling me those guys are available at pick 12, dude, I'm the happiest man alive because I don't care which one of those you take, you got an instant upgrade. So I like it so far. Cowboys are projected to take Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State, linebacker slash pass rusher. We'll see what he becomes in the NFL. He reminds me a lot of Micah Parsons, actually. And then number 13, this would be crazy for the Rams to get. This was a trade with Atlanta. That's how they got this pick. So they are taking Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU, who, in my opinion, is neck and neck with Jermod McCoy. I think Jermod McCoy, if he never had the ACL tear, there's no question at all Jermod McCoy is the best corner in this class. But since he did, I think Mansour Delane is neck and neck with him. And if either one of those two are available, it is a instant upgrade. So
Mhm.
that would be another nice pickup.
Don't even try to butcher this one. Just say the guard from Penn State, please.
The guard from Penn State with the last name Lone, they're projecting him to go to the Ravens at 14. Sonny Styles is going to the Bucks at 15, which is another tough one for me because if the Cowboys are sitting around 18, 19, and you already got Arvell Reese or you already got Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles makes it to 15, I think I'm making another trade up
Mhm.
because that's two instant impact players that is going to make your defense go from bottom of the league to at worst top 20. I think that's how much impact those two guys would have. That's a lot of star power to get at the same time, so probably not going to happen either. But if Sonny Styles makes it to 15, I'm trading up. At 16, they got the Jets taking Peter Woods, the defensive lineman from Clemson, a very good player. I think he's going to be probably the best defensive tackle in this class. They got the Lions taking Francis Muaga, tackle from Miami. I think that would be another good pick for them.
Mhm.
Then they got the Vikings taking Jermod McCoy, which would be unbelievable if the Cowboys were to get hosed on that just 2 picks before they pick on their next one, because right now they got the Cowboys picking 20 in this, and I think that
Mhm.
could change if the Packers win or lose, but right now they're at 20. So if Jermod McCoy gets taken at 18 and you didn't get a corner with that first pick, man, that'd be really tough to swallow.
Mhm.
And they got Amari Washington, defensive interior player from Oregon. They have him mocked to the Carolina Panthers. Would be another good pickup. And this one, I am pretty disgusted by, Graves. I'm not gonna lie. They got Kendrick Falk, edge from
Keldrick.
Auburn. Keldrick Falk, sorry, Keldrick Falk, edge from Auburn.
Yeah.
I just don't
I
like
think you're
big,
reaching here.
slow
Yeah.
defensive linemen.
Yeah. I
I
think
would rather
you're
you
reaching
get the
here.
speed guys.
Yeah.
And if because at the same time, Cassius Howell's just a few guys back on this mock draft. And man, if you tell me I can get Cassius Howell or Kid Keldrick Falk, it's a pretty easy pick for me. So I would be pretty upset with that one, but at least they're trying, I guess, is the way I'd look at it. Be like, well, at least they had tried to address edge. They just don't know how to draft edges. So there you
Mhm.
go. After the Cowboys, they got the Steelers taking Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of A&M. They definitely need wide receiver help, so probably not a bad idea. 22, they got the Chargers taking Cassius Howell, edge from Texas A&M. I think he would be a much better player over Keldrick Falk, but what do I
Mhm.
know? At 23, they got the Eagles taking Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. If you're going to take a tight end in the first round, that's about the right range to take one, but he better be pretty
Mhm.
special. And you already got
Yeah.
Dallas Goddard, so I don't know. It would probably help Jalen Hurts a lot to have a safety blanket check down target, though, especially one
And
that
he's
can
a
exploit.
smaller. He's not a bigger tight end by no means. He's like a 6'3", 230, 240 guy. So
Okay, it's kinda like a
he's one of
hybrid tight
those.
end wide receiver.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never heard his name until, just right now.
Mhm.
Denzel Boston is projected to go to the Buffalo Bills at 24, wide receiver out of Washington. They gotta keep trying until they hit on a wide receiver, so I guess, just keep trying and trying until you find one that doesn't suck. That's a little harsh. At,
Yeah, a little bit.
25, you got TJ Parker, edge from Clemson. I think I like him more than Keldrick Falk as well, but I don't
Yeah.
like him either. I don't think he's the right prototype for the kind of defense I want the Cowboys to be running, so do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of a boomer bust player. I don't like him for the Cowboys though.
Yeah, I mean, if you get in the top of the second round and he's still there, I wouldn't mind trading up, kind of like what you did for DeMarcus Lawrence forever ago.
Mm, mhm.
I think he would be worth it if you got him, like, at pick 40, 45, or something like that, but I wouldn't take him in the first round.
Yeah.
Now the other tackle from Utah, Caleb Lomu, he is projected to go to the San Francisco 49ers at 26. I think that would be a pretty solid pickup.
Yeah.
At number 27, they got the Texans taking Caleb Banks, defensive lineman from Florida. Also a pretty good player, but probably not the best defensive tackle in this class to me. At 28, they got Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville, going to the Browns. Don't know much about that one yet. I haven't heard his name too much, so don't really have a whole lot to say there. But have you heard of him?
I've heard the name, but I haven't paid much.
Yeah. Well, same thing. They need wide receivers.
I
Uh,
need more wide receivers, but it's a start, I
they
guess.
they need a quarterback too, but
Yeah.
Jennings Dunker, tackle out of Iowa, they're projecting to go to the Rams at 29. Aiden Proctor at 30 to the Patriots.
I
Man,
like that one.
man, the Patriots, they could get Caden Proctor at 30, that would be a steal to me. You get
Yeah.
what's the guy's name? What's the left tackle's name they just drafted? Will Gonzalez?
No.
Or Will something?
I know who you're
The
talking
white dude, he's
about.
not Gonzalez, I just can't think of his name.
No. Yeah.
Anyways, that guy. So if you go combine him with Caden Proctor on the other side and actually give Drake May plenty of time in the pocket, you could really see that kid take off big time.
Yeah.
And here's your special player, Anthony Hill Jr. to the Broncos at 31.
To be
Man.
honest, this is the type of guy that I mean, if we had the picks to do it, I would like to see it somehow we trade into this spot, you know? If we ever decided we wanted to trade back, say they don't like anybody who's sitting there, say Jamad McCoy's gone, and I wouldn't like the Keldrick Falk pick. So if they decided to trade back a little bit later into this first round, maybe pick up another pick or something
Mhm.
in the second or third round, I could see Anthony Hill, depending on how they go with the first pick. If they
I would
already
love that. I would
If they
love that.
haven't done linebacker already, I can see this being a good pick for them.
If they go edge in the first pick, like say David Bailey falls down there to 12 or,
Mhm.
or Ruben Bain, if they fall down there to 12 and they address edge first, I'm more than okay with that. But I
Yeah.
agree with you completely. Trade that pick down somewhere at the bottom of the first or early second, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a decent linebacker available, whether
Yeah.
that's Anthony Hill Jr. or some of these
If
other guys that
Jamad
may fall.
McCoy, Sonny Styles, Peter Woods, Delane, if any of those guys fall to you close to that 18, 19, 20 pick, then sure, get them then. But if none of those guys are available, trade it back.
Totally agree. And last on the list, they got the Seahawks taking Brandon Cisse. I don't know how to say that last
Yeah.
name. Cornerback out of South Carolina. At that point, you're just kind of taking project players.
Yeah.
Seahawks 32nd pick if they do win the Super Bowl. I think that'd be a pretty good pick for them. All right. Well, that is mock draft number 2. Of course, as we get closer and closer to the draft, the mocks will get a little bit more accurate to probably what's going to actually
Yeah.
happen.
And we'll
There's still
pick
so
one
much time.
specific draft and we'll stick to it and see it out through the draft, see how they
Sure.
update it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And right now a lot of these guys, they're going to be out of the first round by the time we get to the draft. Mock drafts change so much, especially when you're talking about 3 or 4 months out from the draft. So a lot of this is probably not going to happen, but it is interesting to talk about and
Mhm.
I really look forward to seeing what the Cowboys do in this upcoming draft. So, well, that's all we have for you guys today. We'll be back next Thursday. We're going to discuss the latest news surrounding the Jerry Jones circus. And from now on, we'll pretty much mainly be discussing the playoffs as that's unfolding. And then we're going to start talking about the draft pretty consistently. So, follow us along on all of our socials: TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. And that's all going to be at Keeping Up with the Joneses Pod. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.